Lieutenant Rick Harmon hated attention. He stepped through the airlock into lavender light and the low, musical hum of the Aran starship Luminara. The air tasted faintly of copper and crushed mint. Thin glyphs pulsed on the walls like fireflies. The crew, tall, graceful, skin like polished amethyst, turned their emerald eyes to watch the first human liaison officer ever assigned to the flagship of the Alien High Council. "Welcome aboard, Lieutenant," said Captain Dren, voice deep and warm. He had the gentle gravity of a mountain. His four-fingered hand was cool in Rick's grip. "6 months among us, share what you are, learn what we are, make us better together." "Yes, sir," Rick said. He kept his shoulders square, his clothes immaculate, dark blue jacket with old service patches, olive shirt, boots that still knew desert dust. He was only 32, but the short black hair at his temples was already going gray. He wore his seriousness like armor. And then she stepped from the line. "Talia," the captain said, "orientation." Her hair was deep indigo, heavy and wave-like as if it had memory. Her lavender skin held a soft sheen under the corridor lights. In the dark blue ship suit, she was all clean lines and quick balance, but it was her eyes that struck him, bright green and alive, the kind of eyes that looked at a thing and saw it on 2 levels at once, what it was and what it could be. "Lieutenant Harmon," she said, musical voice edged with amusement, "I'm told humans are very serious." "Sometimes," he said, fighting the instinct to stand even straighter. "Good," she said, "I like puzzles." For 5 days, she was everywhere. At the mess table showing him how Aran utensils locked to plates in low gravity, on the cultural deck teaching him the old hand gestures that softened hard words, in the engine gallery, standing at the rail while blue-white plasma swam under the floor like a storm. She kept asking questions that chipped at his edges. "Why do you hide your feelings?" she asked once. "I don't," he said. "You do," she said, smiling. "You think it's strength. I think it's a door you're afraid to open." He told himself it didn't matter. He told himself he was fine. Then he tried the sonic shower. The hygiene chamber was a ring of clear cylinders, tall and narrow, with soft light and a floor that tasted the soles of your feet to read your biochemistry. The interface offered species presets. He selected human. He set privacy to personal. He undressed, stepped inside, and pressed start. A cool shimmer crawled over his skin. The air thickened and sang. Tiny particles like light dust cut sweat and salt and heat from him in a rush. Then the panel blinked. "Self-clean lock, override in progress, please wait." "What?" he said. A shadow moved outside the glass. "Talia." She pressed a finger to her lips, winked, and lifted a slim black remote the size of a matchbox. He wanted to be angry, but the look on her face undid him. It was not cruel, it was curious, it was play. He covered himself with his hands out of habit, turned red out of habit, and met her eyes out of something not habit at all. "Hilarious," he mouthed, trying not to laugh. "Let me out." "Admit something," she mouthed back. "What?" "That you feel." He rolled his eyes, but there was a crack in his careful mask, and she saw it. He saw that she saw it, and then he laughed, a short, quiet, helpless laugh that startled him more than the lock. "Fine," he said through the glass. "I feel, now open the—" The lock clicked, the door slid. He reached for a towel, she turned away to give him privacy. The kindness after the mischief touched some forgotten nerve in him. "This means war," he said, dry now, wrapped and flushed, but smiling for the first time in days. "Promise," she said, and her eyes were bright as stars. He retaliated the next day by adjusting her shower's color tuner. She came to breakfast with hair glowing pink like a dawn cloud. He said nothing for 5 minutes. When she caught his eye, he raised one eyebrow. She laughed until she cried. The war escalated. Her prank reprogrammed his translator to rhyme for 3 hours of a diplomatic briefing. His prank retuned the gravity in her boots so she bounced like a happy comet down the corridor. Crew watched and laughed and shook their heads and softened to the stranger who had arrived like a knife and was becoming a person in front of them. That was the public story. The private story began the night he went back to the hygiene deck to learn the shower's operating code, to lay a future trap, and found a thing that did not belong. It was no bigger than a fingernail. It lay under the base housing where only a mechanic would look. It was black and glossy and had the wrong shape for an Aran tool. He lifted it with tweezers. It was warm. It ticked against his glove like a moth. A beacon. It pulsed a code. He did not know to a place he could not see. Rick's stomach tightened. He did not call security. He did not want to drag Talia into an interrogation room over a prank she had already apologized for with tea and a story about her grandmother. He put the device in his pocket, sealed the panel, and turned to leave. The lights died. For a breath, there was only the slow afterglow of the ship's pulse, the soft light of the glyph's fatting, the hush that falls when a big thing holds its breath. Then something thumped below the deck, a deep, hollow sound like a fist on a drum. Rick ran. At the end of the corridor, behind a buckled door, pressure shrieked and air turned into knives. He braced, wedged the door with his shoulder, sealed the manual valve, and plugged the breach with a rescue blanket welded by a handheld cutter he ripped from a wall box. The alarm stopped screaming. The corridor stopped trying to eat him. In the new quiet, his heart beat hard enough to hurt. He took the black device from his pocket. It was dead. He was alone with a ship that had almost died and a single question that crawled under his skin and would not stop moving. Was the prank the cover? He turned the beacon over in his hand and thought about Talia's smile. Behind him, something in the dark made a soft, patient click. He did not sleep. He took the second device and the first to his cabin, locked the door, and set them on the desk under a field lamp. Warm now, both of them. Their tiny cores whispered in a rhythm like a heartbeat. The Luminara returned to normal operations within an hour. Captain Dren's voice came over shipwide. A localized systems anomaly, resolved, no injuries. All hands resume ordinary duty. The calm tone made the hair on the back of Rick's neck rise. He went to Talia. She was in the archive dome, a room like a pale sea, full of hanging glass shells that carried stories. She was cross-legged on the floor with a half-open shell in her lap, reading a light thread with 2 fingers. Her hair had returned to indigo, but a single pink strand remained like a secret. "Rick," she said, surprised and pleased, "you look like a man who found a ghost." He told her everything. He showed her the devices. He listed the noises and the dark and the door that had tried to break his ribs. Her eyes changed, still bright but narrowed the way a surgeon's eyes narrow when the instruments come out. Not fear, but focus. "Not Aaron," she said, turning a device in her long fingers. "Not ours." "Human?" he asked. "I don't think so," she said. "See this segmentation? Aaron tech grows in curves. Human tech is boxy, modular. This is like a seed and a knife had a child." "You're a poet," he said despite himself. "You're a liar," she said gently. "You're worried I did this." He started to say no. He stopped. He could not do that to her. "I don't want to be," he said, "but the prank and the lock and the timing." Talia nodded. "Then let us test the story together." She called security. Commander Valen arrived, tall and severe, his skin almost slate, his eyes the dark green of a forest under rain. He disliked humans. He did not hide it. He picked up a device with 2 fingers as if it might stain him. "Not ours," he said after a long look. "Who had access to the control ring?" "Half the deck," Talia said. "It isn't a restricted zone." Valen's gaze moved like a scanner. "Rick, the devices," Talia's face, back to Rick. "Lieutenant," he said, "you are clever. You hide it under your politeness. You think I don't see it, but I do. You will tell me if there is more you are not saying." "If I knew more, I'd tell you," Rick said. Valen's attention shifted. "Officer Talia, you played a role in the lock of the human's hygiene chamber yesterday." "Yes," she said, meeting his eyes without fear. "A joke. It ended in laughter and a lecture about professionalism." "And now there are bombs under our floor," Valen said. "How funny." "Commander," Talia said, and the single word held the weight of history. "Please be better than this." Valen held her gaze for 3 silent seconds. Then he stepped back. "Captain will want a full deck sweep. I will instruct engineering to map recent power fluctuations. Do not leave the ship without authorization." He left like a door closing. Rick breathed out. "Trust is simple when nothing is at stake," Talia said. "It becomes art when the stakes go up." He opened his mouth to reply. The ship lurched. Lights died again, not a flicker, a fall. The hum of systems became a roar as emergency bulkheads slid into place. The archive shells snapped shut like startled clams. A siren wailed 2 notes that made Rick think of burning oxygen. "Hull," Talia said, "midship." They ran. On the way, Rick passed a bulkhead and saw through the rectangular window the worst thing a spacer can see. stars moving where hard metal should be. A hole had peeled the corridor open like a can. Air and papers and a silver mug and a glove went tumbling out into the blasted black. A young crewman grabbed the frame and held on, feet flailing, eyes wide, mouth opening and closing like a fish. Rick did not think. He hit the emergency manual release on the local foam unit, anchored the hose to the frame, hooked himself, and went hand over hand into a sucking wind that wanted his bones. He caught the crewman's wrist. It was slick with sweat. It slid. He shouted without sound in the soundlessness. He hooked his boot on a rung, pulled until fire lit his arms, and dragged the kid back to the frame while his lungs begged him to stop. He slammed the foam lever and white expansion swallowed the breach like candy floss growing on a stick. The wind stopped chewing at him. He lay there with the kid in his lap, hearts hammering a drum duet. Talia appeared with a med patch and eyes like knives in rain. "Breathe," she said. "In, out." She pressed the patch to Rick's neck. Norepinephrine, oxygen, calm. Science tasted like a mint leaf dissolving on his tongue. "Thank you," the crewman wheezed, tears cutting clean lines down a dusty face. His name patch said Kess. "Anytime," Rick said, joking because that was how you put a hand on a fear's shoulder. Kess laughed and then sobbed and then laughed again. Security sealed the corridor. Engineering reported 3 more breaches, all micro, all patched. Dren ordered a full sweep of structural supports. Valen found a 4th device in an air intake near the diplomatic wing. The captain called Rick and Talia to the command dome. The dome was a ring of glass and meaning. The screens floated like planets. The crew moved hands and eyes like music. Dren stood still as a city and looked at Rick. "Lieutenant," he said, "we have a problem that smells like politics." "Whose politics?" Rick asked. Dren didn't answer, because the wall screen changed and gave the answer in the smooth, crisp face of Admiral Rice of Earth Command. Eyes like cut steel, background full of flags. "Lieutenant Harmon," she said without preface, "you are to stand down and submit to confinement. You will be transferred to Sentry Station for questioning regarding sabotage on an Allied vessel." Rick's mouth went dry. Talia's hand brushed his. "On what grounds?" Dren asked. The screen split. On the right, a video began. It was the hygiene chamber. It was Rick naked and red, palms up, saying, "Fine, I feel." The angle was wrong, not the corridor cameras. Someone's hand, a little black lens. The video froze on his face, fooled by humor and wrong light so he looked like a stranger. Under the image was a caption in wave blue letters. "Human PLANTEDDVICES. Human LAUGHS." The signature on the transmission was old and dangerous. The Purity Circle. The Purity Circle was an Aran isolationist sect. They believed the galaxy turned rotten when species mixed their ways and blood. They lived in archive caves and kept lists of what should never change. They had Talia's grandmother's lullabies and Rick's nightmares in common. "Admiral," Rick said, throat tight, "if I had wanted to sabotage the ship, I would not have saved a kid with my bare hands 15 minutes ago." "We have that report as well," Admiral Rice said. "It buys you nothing without evidence. Submit to confinement, Lieutenant. We will sort the rest out later." Talia took 1 step forward until her shoulder touched Rick's. "If he goes in chains," she said soft and clear, "I go with him." "Officer Talia," the Admiral said, "this is a human internal matter." "No," said a new voice, and the camera angle widened to show High Counselor Merrick of the Aran government, skin like winter, eyes like knives honed on tears. "It is mine. The Purity Circle used our symbol and your soldier to try to burn our ship. We will find whose hand it is. We will cut that hand." "Enough," Captain Dren said calmly, and the way he said it made both governments pause. "My ship is bleeding. My crew is afraid. We do ship work now, politics later." The screens went dark. Dren turned, took Rick's hands, and pressed them once. "You will not be confined," he said. "But you will not leave this ship. You will answer only to me. I will hold the world back with my hands until we know what the truth is." "Thank you," Rick said, and found he meant more than the words could carry. Talia's mouth had gone thin. "The Purity Circle sent me letters when I was a girl," she said quietly. "My mother burnt them in a bowl and taught me a song about how smoke carries away what you do not need. They hate joy. They hate change. They will not stop. Not now that a video made them feel powerful." "Then we will take their power," Dren said. "How?" Rick asked. The way humans do, Dren said, and he smiled a little. By breaking a rule that deserves to break. He looked up at the dome. Set a course for Century Station, he said. We bring the fight into their light. Everyone looked at him. Captain, Valen said carefully, that will make us a target. We are already a target, Dren said. Better to choose the ground. The stars slid. The ship bent space. The sound was like a low cello string plucked by a patient hand. Rick stood with Talia at the rail. Somewhere in the ship, Kess laughed shakily and told someone who had not been there about a man who held him when the world tried to throw him away. Rick squeezed the black device in his pocket until his knuckles hurt. Century Station was a city in a ring, hung around a small white sun like a bracelet with too many charms. Docking corridors reached like spokes. The reception hall was full of translators that breathed, flags that rippled in no wind, beings in carapace and fur and silk, and the smell of 100 kitchens cooking 100 ways to be alive. The Luminara slid into berth. News of the sabotage had run ahead, so had the video. Rick felt eyes like pricks of heat on his skin as he stepped into the public corridor. Humans who read gossip looked at him like a traitor. Aran elders who remembered other ships looked at him like a contagion. Children looked and then looked away and then looked again, because shame and curiosity wrestle in children with no referee. Talia walked at his side, chin up. She wore a formal sash that seemed to carry light. They do not know us, she said. We will teach them. Later, Valen said dryly, for now do not get stabbed. They reached the diplomatic dome, a ring of glass and silver with a floor of cold white stone and a ceiling that captured the sun and bent its light into a soft wash. The council delegates were there. Admiral Rice was there with a human honor guard like steel trees. High Counselor Merrick was there with archivists in gray. The Tyrellian observer, Elder Seth, stood like a column of glass full of rain. Dren spoke first, voice steady. We bring evidence, he said, and put the black devices on the table. The devices sat like beetles. Merrick's archivist stepped forward, a thin, tall Aran with hair like frost. Archivist Kale, he said, bowing. His eyes touched Talia and left like a scissor blade sliding past thread. We will open them now. No, Talia said. The dome went quieter in a way that meant the noise changed color rather than volume. Heads turned. Talia, Kale said mildly, do not let your affection for novelty make you foolish. They are not bombs, Talia said. They are mouths. You open them here and they will shout in the most public room in the sector. Kale's smile did not reach his eyes. That is not how devices work. That is how these work, Rick said. They are transmitters with teeth. They were planted in public spaces. They send when disturbed. Watch. He slid a thin fiber loop under one device and tugged. It warmed, pulsed, chirped. The dome screen lit like a struck match. A rush of old Aran words spilled across the glass like a storm of leaf-cutting ants. The translation grid groaned and output stalled, stuttered, then caught up in a flat machine voice. Purity is survival. Mixing is decay. Lock your doors. The human LAUGHS. The device died. Interesting, Kale said. He did not look surprised. Dren looked at Admiral Rice and Merrick. You see the design, you see the plan. Someone used an ugly laugh and a small device to make a great fear. They wanted human and Aran to stand back to back, not face to face. Who gains from that? Those who like selling weapons, Rice said. Those who write old rules in blood, Merrick said. Rick felt Talia's hand shift near his. She did not take his hand. She did not need to. Its warmth was a thread. Elder Seth's 3 blank eyes turned. There is another option, the Tyrellian said in a voice like 3 flutes at once. Those who fear a future that binds species with more than words. The device maker expected this meeting to contain you too. An aide touched Merrick's sleeve, whispered, retreated. Merrick's mouth turned to a thin line. The Purity Circle has claimed the message, he said, but they lack the hardware to build this. Someone else gave them the knife. Who, Rice asked. Whoever has always preferred that Aran and human live on parallel roads that never cross, Merrick said. I have a list. Start at the top, Dren said. Archivist Kale, Merrick said without looking away from the screen. Assemble your team. Kale inclined his head in a way that looked like obedience and felt like something else. The meeting broke. Dren turned to Talia and Rick. Station security has set a secure wing for our crew. We walk there now. We do not split. Valen. I have them, Valen said. They made 20 meters into the corridor before the glass above them cracked like ice. Light fell, sound tore. Drones dropped like spiders from a ceiling that had looked like sky. They had little bellies with bright holes and legs that cut. They were built by someone who liked elegant lines and events that ended things. Valen moved like steel waking. He fired a coil pistol left and right, and a drone died. Dren took a shield from a wall case and raised it like a roof. Talia grabbed Rick's sleeve and pulled him into the shelter, and the three of them were one shape as the drone's holes spat fire. The shield hummed, the floor jumped. Rick saw their reflection in the back of the shield and thought, this is not a prank. This is a war, and the first shot was a joke. Power grid, Talia shouted over the hum. These drones are on station power, they piggybacked. Rick's hand went to his jacket by reflex, found the thin universal interface needle he carried like a lucky coin, snapped it open, drove it into a wall panel, and called up the lowest layer of the station's power map, the layer that keeps lights on when everything else is dark. Can you cut them? Valen said from behind the shield. He sounded more curious than afraid. I can starve them, Rick said, but security will yell. I will write them a poem later, Dren said. Do it now. Rick rerouted power, slaved emergency lines to medical and fire control, and bled the corridor grid to brown. The drones faltered. One fell like a drunk bird. Valen shot it before it hit the floor. The others spun, seeking a brighter feed. Now the lights, Talia hissed. What? Rick said. Make it dark, she said. My people see in multiple bands. Humans improvise. The attackers expect light. Give them a new weather. He killed the corridor lights. Darkness rolled like a curtain. In the dark, Talia's hand found his. She squeezed once here, then let go. He heard her breath move, close and steady. He heard Valen's boots slide as he changed angle. He heard Dren's shield hum, and in that hum was a feeling of home that surprised him, a thing bigger than your body that you still fit inside. He scuttled along the wall, guiding himself by the faint heat of circuitry, and found a maintenance hatch. He popped it open, crawled into a little throat of space, and told the drones a lie, that the lights 2 corridors over were a feast. Drones are not smart like people. They are smart like knives. They chase the brighter line. Valen shot 3. Dren broke 1 with the shield. Talia took the last one with a move that was not in any manual. She stepped into its leg sweep, caught 2 arms, twisted, and the drone's belly hit the floor heavy as a book. She stomped it once. It died. Then ordinary lights returned, slow, soft, like dawn after a storm. Security arrived late and loud. In the sticky quiet that follows the end of a fight, Rick saw Archivist Kale at the end of the corridor. He watched them with an expression like a clean plate, nothing on it, and that was the trouble. Kale inclined his head to Talia just so. His eyes did not touch Rick at all. See him, Rick said under his breath. Always, Talia said. Friend. Teacher, she said, once. Now. She did not answer. In the security room, Admiral Rice's mouth was carved into disapproval that was not meant for them. We found a box of shells in a maintenance crawl, she said. The drones were assembled on site. Someone gave enemies a map. Station staff, Dren asked. Maybe, Rice said. Maybe someone wearing a staff badge for the first time. Merrick arrived with Kale a step behind. We traced the Purity Circle transmission through 3 relay masks, he said. The trail stops in a place I do not like. Where? Dren asked. Our ship, Merrick said. The room chilled. Rick tasted metal. Talia's fingers flexed once, then stilled. Valen said nothing. He looked as if someone had laid a piece of hot iron across his back, and he would stand there until it cooled. Not a member of my crew, Dren said. The kind of quiet that means cold is about to become fire. Maybe not a willing one, Merrick said. Parasites wear hosts to the party, Archivist Kale believes. Archivist Kale believes the old code always fits new crimes, Talia said, sharper than she had been all day. Her eyes never left Kale. Do you still believe that, Kale? Kale met her gaze this time. I believe a child should not light a furnace and then complain about the heat. Talia smiled a beautiful, terrible little smile. And I believe adults who fear change love to pretend the child owns the match. Dren lifted a hand. The argument folded itself and tucked into the room's corners like paper. "We go back to the Luminara," he said. "We sweep stem to stern, we stay in motion. We do not wait for another spider to fall on our heads." Rick thought he had found the rhythm of this new day. Run, fight, run. He was wrong. As they turned for the docking corridor, Talia swayed, caught the doorway, and went down slowly to one knee. "Talia," Rick said, and the floor tilted. She put a hand against her stomach, as if to hold it in place. Her eyes met his. He saw shock there and wonder and a thing that was not fear at all. "Later," she whispered. "I will tell you later." "No," he said, because some words come from a place deeper than plans. "Tell me now." She swallowed and then smiled small and true. "Rick," she said, "I think I am pregnant." The blast doors moved like gods in no hurry, heavy and sure and without mercy. They fell toward the floor with the same sound a mountain makes when it slides into the sea, a slow, certain ending. Rick grabbed Talia under the arms and pulled. Valen ducked and hooked her belt. Dren stepped into the gap, planted his shield, and held the sky. The door hit the shield. The shield sang, sparks blew like snow. Dren's arms shook, his teeth showed. Rick had the strangest thought that the captain would have made a good farmer as well as a warship master, a man who put his back under hard things and lifted slowly until they moved. "Go," Dren grated, "now." They dragged Talia under the lip. Rick rolled at the last second and the door kissed the heel of his boot with steel. A shock went up his leg and sat in his spine. The door thundered, closed behind them. The corridor lights went red and began to pulse. Security glyphs wrote fire and void and do not in 3 languages. "Someone wants us cut off from the ship," Valen said. He was sweating without looking like it. "I will not give them what they want." Alarms in the docking shaft changed pitch. Rick knew that sound from old training, depressurization. The world on one side of the door was about to be space. They ran the other way and took a service lift down 3 decks into the station's maintenance rings. The corridors here were narrow and smelled of oil and old tea. Pipes sang in low voices. The walls were scratched with the names of people who keep big things working and are almost never invited to the parties up top. A maintenance worker with 4 arms and grease on 3 cheeks looked up as they pounded past. "Hey," she said. "Emergency." "Yes," Rick said. "Need my help." "Maybe," he said, and meant it. They reached a narrow bridge over a well of cables. Elder Seth waited for them there with 2 Torellian attendants, still as sculptures and twice as strange. "The station core is under attack by a simple mind and an old hate," Seth said. "We can hold for a little while." "How long?" Dren asked. "Long enough for you to reach your ship if you stop talking now," Seth said. They ran again. Talia kept up, but she pressed one hand to her belly. Rick wanted to pick her up and carry her. He did not because she would bite him. He loved that about her so much it almost broke him in half. They reached the Luminara's hatch. It opened like a breath held too long finding a way out. Inside, order and alarm. Medical teams moved. Security ran. The ship smelled like ozone and boiled water and home. Dr. Naren met them at the hatch with a scanner and a face that had watched too many births and too many deaths, and still believed both were holy. Later, Talia began. "Now," Naren said and swept the scanner down her slow. His antennae trembled. His eyes widened. "By the archive," he said softly. "What?" Rick said, afraid to hear the answer and more afraid not to. Naren looked at both of them like a man who has seen light through a door that was always locked. "You are with child," he said to Talia, and then, because old forms mattered, "I ask permission to speak of what I read." Talia nodded. Her mouth shook once. "It has a human signature," Naren said, "and an Aran one. It is harmonious." The last word came out like a prayer someone had not realized they still knew how to say. Valen let out a noise that might have been a curse and might have been a laugh. Dren put a hand over his heart and closed his eyes for a heartbeat. Rick felt his knees try to go south. He told them to stand. They did because the body obeys the voice it trusts. That's impossible," he said, and his voice had sand in it. "They told us it was impossible." Naren smiled a little. Someone forgot to tell the child. Admiral Rice's face arrived on a nearby wall. Merrick's joined it. The 2 of them looked like statues with breath. "You will remain on your ship," Rice said, "under full observation." You will not jump without permission, Merrick said. You will not breathe without permission, Valen muttered, and Talia elbowed him in the ribs without looking. We'll comply, Dren said, and we'll live. They cut the line. Rick and Talia stood in the little space between medical and the corridor. A joke had opened the door, a war had stepped through, a child had walked in softly like light. Rick reached for Talia's hand. She took his fingers, he put his other hand over hers. We did not plan this now, Talia said. We never plan the best things, Rick said. We survive them, and then we build around them. Talia laughed wetly. You speak like an engineer, she said. I am, he said. When the world breaks, we do not ask why. We start with where the strongest beam can fit. Then start, she said, eyes shining. He looked up at the ceiling, which was also the floor of a higher deck, which was also the hull of a ship that had almost been opened like a tin. Start with this, he said. Our child is not a weapon. We will not let anyone make them one. We will not let anyone make them a symbol to hit each other with. They will be a child first. Talia nodded slowly. That is the only plan I accept. The ship shivered, a little warning tremor in the bones. Engineering to bridge, drive anomaly. Valen tapped his comm. Say again. The speaker's voice was thin with controlled fear. Something in the field, a shadow, a gap. We try to plot around it and it moves where we move. Show me, Dren said. The display lit. Space was a map of invisible currents drawn in glyph light. In the pattern, a hole walked like a slow animal. Not natural, Talia said. Not station, Valen said. Rick stared. He saw it all at once. The drones, the devices, the line of the political talk, the slow step of the hole. They built a null, he said. They will drop the ship into it if we jump. They will call it an accident. They will paint the death with a brush that says dangerous human and reckless Aran and never mix. How do we avoid a hole that follows? Dren asked. You don't, Rick said, and felt his mouth stretch into a smile that felt a little like fear and a little like home. You go through it, on purpose. Valen stared. Are you mad? Yes, Rick said cheerfully, but also right. Explain, Dren said. Rick's hands moved in the air as if he could touch the drive maps. A null eats the field. It smothers math. If the drive's math is quiet, the null has nothing to drink. If we spin up, it follows and eats. If we drop to manual, old coils, non-resonant pulses, ballast thrusters, they cannot drag the ship because there is no drink. You want to sail a flagship like a stone boat, Valen said. He did not sound like he hated the idea. Exactly, Rick said. We pop into the null on cold mass, ride it like a river pothole, pop out with old-school Newton and a prayer. They won't expect it. They built this trap for clever modern pilots. I am not clever, I am stubborn. Dren looked at Talia. It could work, she said. It is stupid, which is often what works when old rules fail. Dren turned to the ceiling. Engineering, he said. Prepare for a manual drop, kill the fancy, wake the ugly, Valen lock the crew, everyone straps in. If you can say a good word to a god you no longer believe in, do it now. Valen's mouth twitched. Yes, Captain. Rick bent to Talia, put his forehead to hers, closed his eyes, and let two breaths become one. Trust me, he said. I chose you, she said softly. That is trust. The ship dimmed as the modern heart went still. The old heart woke with a clank and a groan and a sound like home. Big coils humming, metal remembering heat, the low, deep throb of a thing built to move heavy and straight. On your count, Lieutenant, Dren said. Rick watched the map. He felt the null pull like a headache deep in his bones. He counted backward from 3 with his mouth closed because some numbers are private. Now, the luminara fell. For a moment there was nothing. No hum, no light, no feeling of weight against the seat. Then there was everything at once. Pressure lifting, stomach rising, blood singing, a darkness that was not dark but plain, like the world before someone thought of color. The ship's bones groaned. Old coils spat. Rick saw the map rotate like a rock turning in a slow flood. He punched the cold thrusters in manual taps. The ship moved not like a shark, but like a whale that remembers rivers. Hold, he whispered. The null thinned, a seam appeared. Now, Dren said softly, and Rick hit the ballast hard. The luminara burst out of the hole like a hand, breaking the water of a pond. Light returned with a slap. The crew cheered like people who have been renamed. Good, Valen said, breathing in a way that sounded like laughing quietly into his chest so no one would see. Now the bad news. Bad, Dren said. Archivist Kale just locked medical, Valen said. He took Dr. Narin, he took 2 assistants, he took. The child, Rick said, and something in him went very still. Yes, Valen said. He took the child to the archive chapel and sealed the door. The archive chapel was not a room. It was a promise. It sat at the heart of the Luminara, built when the hull was new and the paint still smelled like beginning. Its walls held old stone from a mountain on Aran. Its ceiling held a lens that made starlight into a pool on the floor. Kale loved this room. He had taught Talia in this room the names of things that had names before people did. River, wind, hunger, story. He had told her history was a river you drink and also a road you walk and also a fire you keep. Now he had locked the door and filled the old space with new hate. Rick and Valen and Dren stood in the corridor outside, staring at the sealed slab. Talia stood with them, face calm, eyes burning. Kale, Dren said, and his voice was a thread in a net. Let us talk. We are talking, Kale said from the speaker. I am saying no to the end of the world. Open the door, Talia said, and her voice was not a child's voice anymore. It was a woman, and also a mother, and also a storm's. You taught me to love the past. I loved it so much I wanted to give it a future. You will not take my future from me and call it loyalty. Kale was silent for a breath. When he spoke, the edges of the words were sharp. I taught you not to confuse novelty with meaning. You taught me meaning is novelty, Talia said, and Valen's mouth opened the smallest bit in appreciation for the aim and the hit. Lieutenant Harmon, Kale said, ignoring her. Come in without your weapons, without your shield, without your tricks. You have my doctor, Dren said. You have my crew, you have my friend's child. You have to know that what you do now is not a thing you walk away from. That is true, Kale said. I do not plan to walk away. Rick stood very still, as if movement would break something that could still be saved. Open the door for me, he said. Let them stay here. No, Kale said. I do not fear the captain's strength. I fear your weakness. I fear the way you make Aran laugh. I fear the way you turn my student's head with jokes and foolishness. Bring your weakness in naked. Rick looked at Talia. I'll go, he said. She nodded, no weapons. He stripped his coil pistol, his blade, his tools, his lucky needle. He took off the jacket that made him look official and the shirt that made him look like he belonged in rooms where rules are made. He stood in a black undershirt and old scars and new resolve. Open, he said. The door slid. The room was a bowl of stone and light. Narin sat on the floor, hands bound in front of him, calm in the way old doctors are calm when days bend and do not break. An assistant sobbed quietly. Another looked at Rick with big eyes full of don't fail. On the far side, the old altar, a slab of mountain. On it, a small box the size of a loaf of bread with a glass top. Under the glass, a seed that was not seed at all, more like a cluster of pale nerves wound in a knot. It pulsed faintly. Do not move, Kale said, because Rick took a step toward the box without meaning to. I'm not dumb, Rick said. I'm not sure, Kale said and stepped into the light. He was tall as ever, thin as an idea that forgot to eat. His hair had gone from frost to snow. His eyes were the kind of green plants have when they grow in caves, hungry, honest, wrong. You took my teacher's seat, he said. You sat in the place where we keep what we are. You made her laugh there. You thought that was success. It is vandalism. Rick kept his voice level. You planted bombs on the ship, he said. You attacked a public place. You would hurt a child. That is vandalism in a bigger room. Kale tilted his head. Do not use the word child like a spell. Your species loves spells. You say hope and future and love, and then you burn the next town. I am old, human. I have watched newcomers say together and mean mine. Rick took a breath. He tasted stone and old polish and fear. You like old stories, he said. Here is one. We lived in caves and then we walked in grass. We learned tool and fire. We learned to share a kitchen and shout across a field. We learned not to eat our neighbors. It took us too long. We failed a lot. We still do, but we are better now than we were. We want to keep getting better. That's not a spell. That's a promise and a job. Kale's mouth moved, not a smile. You speak well, he said. I am not a fool. I know some change is growth, but some is rot. He set his hand on the box. What is that? Rick asked. Kale's eyes flickered to the seed. An old thing, he said. An Aran embryo grown in the archive to teach apprentices about beginnings. It is not alive in the way your child is. It is alive in the way a song is alive when no one sings it. He tapped the glass. If I break this, the module will flood the chamber with sterilant. It will kill anything that could survive it. It will make the room clean. It will make your story simple. Don't, Rick said, and heard his own voice make a new shape. Kale watched him. Bring me a promise, he said. Your child will grow among Aran only. They will speak Aran only. They will learn Aran ways only. They will be ours, not yours. No, Rick said. Then history ends here, Kale said, and lifted his hand. Wait, Talia said from the doorway, voice flat and cut to fit. We do not ask him to claim, we claim him. Kale hesitated. I am Aran, Talia said, stepping inside. I am my mother's daughter. I am my grandmother's voice in a room where men talk too much. I claim my child. I claim my lover. I claim my future. You taught me to claim. You don't get to take that back because the claim makes you afraid. Kale looked at her the way a teacher looks at a student who has written a perfect answer to the wrong question. I am sorry, he said. No. He moved to press the glass. Rick moved first. He had no weapon. He had a prank he had learned from a woman with indigo hair and laughter like a key. He threw his body at the floor in a way that made sound. He clapped his hands once, hard, in the old Aran chapel that knew how to carry resonance. He put his mouth to the stone and shouted a single note Talia had taught him in a lesson disguised as a joke. It was an Aran tone used in sonic showers to modulate particle spray. In a stone room, it made glass sing. The box sang, the glass shivered. Kale jerked his hand back. Talia moved like water poured down steps. She slid through light, hit Kale's wrist, twisted, and the control ring clattered to the floor and rolled under the altar. Valen came through the door like a storm in boots and put Kale on the floor with a simple, rude move that had no poetry in it at all, and was beautiful for that reason. Dren followed, lifted Narin, cut the assistants loose. Rick lay on his side, panting, laughing a little because laughter is what happens when a plan that should not have worked does. Talia knelt and put both hands on his face. You ridiculous, perfect human, she said. You started it, he said. Always, she said, and kissed his forehead in the old apprentice greeting. Learn, not own. Kale did not struggle. He looked at the ceiling. I wanted to save us, he said. I wanted to make a wall strong enough to keep the sea out. It is a sea inside the wall, Talia said. It is us. Valen bound him. Dren stood above him and spoke the old words that had not been said on a ship in a long time because old men think old rules can sleep forever. Archivist Kale, by your hand, crew were endangered, peace was broken, history was bent. You will go to judgment. Kale closed his eyes. A sound began far away, clapping. It was the crew, slow, steady, echoing down corridors, not celebration but affirmation, we are still here. Rick stood, his legs were not good friends. He made them behave. He crossed the room to the old altar and put his hand on the glass box. The glass stopped singing. He looked at his hand and thought about dirt roads and new asphalt and silk and stone and soft baby hair that did not exist yet and would. He felt the ship's hum change. Captain, engineering said in Dren's ear. Someone just pinged our nav from the Cygni's reach. It carries a key we have never seen. Elder Seth's voice joined them. The conclave offers you passage, he said. You tied a knot in a place where we have seen only frayed rope. We wish to see where that rope pulls. Talia's hand slid into Rick's. Do you want to see my home? She asked, voice small now not with fear but with something that might be joy. Yes, Rick said, and meant everything. Colonel Havel had once taught Rick how to lay a bridge while someone shot at your hands. He had taught Rick the fine art of not dying on the day the universe tried its best to learn you. He had also taught him how to smile at a politician and steal every coin from their pocket with a regulation pen. Now his voice came over a covert line like sandpaper on glass. Stand down, Havel said. Lock your drive, wait for escort. This is not your ship, Dren said. This is not your war, Havel said. Rick saw the trap like a diagram. Havel, he said, is this you or is someone holding your pen hand? Havel didn't answer the question he had asked. You are out of position, Lieutenant. You have compromised a strategic engagement. You will stand down and deliver the hybrid to Earth Command custody. There it was, the word that turns a child into a weapon. Rick's hand tightened on air. "No," he said. "Lieutenant," Havel said, that old iron in his voice, "you will follow orders." "Once upon a time," Rick said, "you taught me orders are for machines, people have judgment, I am using mine." "Your judgment is warped by attachment," Havel said. "Good," Rick said, "that makes it ours." Talia's laugh came out like a hiccup. She clapped a hand over her mouth. She was crying, she didn't try to stop. "Colonel," Dren said, voice as polite as a knife laid on a table sideways, "your request is denied. You may file complaint with your gods." The line went dead. Valen leaned a shoulder against the stone and looked at Rick as if he were cataloging him again, the way he had at the start. "I still do not like you," he said, "but I am glad you came." Rick nodded, fair. They did not have much time. Havel would come with papers and guns and men who thought the two were the same. The Purity Circle would send letters with knives in them. The Conclave had offered a road, and that road went through a region where old rules bent and the stars looked back. Captain Eldersef said on the main band, "The span is open. Travel now or lose the window." "Plot," Dren said. Plotted, Engineering said. "Drive hum is clean, cold coils ready, old heart awake." "Take us home," Dren said, and the ship moved. The Cygni's reach was a corridor of thinness between gravity wells that hate each other. It is what you get when an old god scrapes its nail through space. A scar the bold use and the timid deny exists. It cut the journey to Aran from months to days. On the second day in the reach, the Luminara met ships. They were human and stranger than human. They carried giant radar sails like moth wings. They carried guns like stitches. The lead ship's transponder blinked HFY like a dare. "Do not fire," Dren said. "We are not prey, we are not hunters, we are a house moving." Havel opened with words. "By authority of Earth Command and a dozen committees that pay for my coffee, I order you to cut your drive, power down, and prepare to be boarded." Dren smiled the smallest smile. "By authority of being who I am and owning what I own," he said, "no." The human ships started to crowd them, pushing gravity in small ways that matter, like a stranger leaning in your seat on a bus to see if you will move. Rick went to the auxiliary control pit and brought up an interface that was not supposed to be there. An old engineer named Saul had shown him this one night at 0300 with a laugh and a promise and 3 shots of something that had never seen a label. It let you talk to a ship the way you talk to a horse that's only been ridden by generals. Slow, honest, with your weight in the right place. "Trust me," he whispered. He trimmed mass. He shifted water. He pushed old coils 2% out of tune so the ship made a song no computer expects. It felt like cheating at cards with a deck you made yourself on a lonely night. The Luminara slid like a big fish turning in a river that recently learned it was also a knife. Havel's ships did not collide. They stuttered, surprised. The window opened. Dren took it. The woman at Havel's elbow, the one who had been silent until now, leaned into frame. Rick knew her too. Major Kell. She had taught him how to read a face that wants you to die and talk it into wanting you to live, at least for 10 minutes. "Rick," she said, soft enough that the carapaced aliens on the bridge leaned in without knowing they were doing it. "If you run, you will make this worse." "If I stop, I will make this over," he said. He looked at Talia, she looked at him. When two people look, they write the same story with their eyes. He said to the screen, "I choose worse that lives." Kell closed her eyes briefly, in a way that meant I wish I still could. They cut the line. The human ships did not fire. They did not leave. They shadowed. One more day to Aran. One more old problem disguised as a new tech. Rick went to the nursery cell. It had been made fast by hands that knew this would be a moving home for a while. It smelled like cloth warmed by skin. It held nothing yet but a clock that ticked in the way of voices. Talia sat in the window seat, looking at a narrow piece of the reach. The light made her skin look like a painting that had learned how to breathe. He sat beside her. They didn't talk for a little while because team is not always words. "When we touch down," he said finally, "they will make speeches. They will try to take our child and turn them into a statue in the city square." "I will teach them the word no," Talia said, and he loved her in his blood. "We will go home to my mother for a week. We will cook soup. We will nap on a floor in sunlight. We will let grandmothers fight admirals. I am tired of fighting men in big rooms." "Me too," he said. She took his hand and put it on her belly. He felt something so small it might have been faith. The ship chimed. "Approach," engineering said. Rick and Talia stood. They went to the bridge. Beyond the glass, Arin. A world of rings of cities and belts of gardens, a big blue lake like an eye crying happily, mountains like the backs of patient animals, a sky the color of good work. The Luminara came down. At the landing ring, there were flags and cameras and a quiet, expectant crowd. There were also uniforms. One line wore Arin gray and silver, one wore human blue and brass. Between them, a woman in a dress of woven light, High Matron Sale, Talia's mother. She had Talia's eyes without the mischief. She had hands with knuckles that looked like they had knocked on many doors until they opened. Talia's breath hitched. "Hold," Rick whispered. "Breathe." "I am," she said. They walked down the ramp. The crowd did not break into cheer. It did not boo. It did a better thing. It made a soft sound humans do not have a word for, and use when a story reaches a part that might change the ending. High Matron Sale stepped forward. She stopped 3 paces away. She looked at Rick from soles to crown and back. Then she looked at her daughter and her daughter's belly. "Daughter," she said. Her voice was a spoon tapping a glass, clear, bright, not to be ignored. "Mother," Talia said, and the small word held a whole house under it. Sale looked at Rick again. "You are the man who laughed in a shower," she said. "Yes," Rick said, "and then I found bombs." Sale said, "A sound you could hang a family on." She stepped forward and kissed Talia's forehead and put her palm on Rick's chest over his old scars. "Welcome," she said, and the crowd's soft sound became breath. Admiral Rice walked forward. Merrick walked beside her. Havel and Kell walked behind Rice. Archivists flanked Merrick. The air smelled like metal and rain and the big, nervous skin of a planet. "We will talk," Rice said. "We will sing," Merrick said. "We will eat first," Sale said. And the admirals had to follow a mother home like lost children, and that maybe saved the world more than anything else that happened that month. The knife was a flat thing cut from a ship brace. It had a hole in the handle where a string had been. The man holding it was thin as hunger. His eyes were the color of walls. He surged forward in the old courtyard where herbs grew in cracked pots, and the tiles were warm from morning. Rick did not think. He did not reach for a gun. He did not have one. He reached for a door and a sound and a hand. The door was Talia's arm. He pulled her back and around so the knife met air where she had been, and her soft, surprising laugh was a confused "oh." The sound was the Arin sonic shower tone again, pitched wrong and right in a stone courtyard where the air knew how to be controlled. He clapped once, shouted the note, and the glass jars on a shelf sang. The zealot flinched, his eyes going to the music, because men who hate new things always follow shiny ones by mistake. The hand was High Matron Sale, and it moved with an old woman's patience, which is the most dangerous kind. She stepped into the man's space, took his wrist, and turned the knife hand into a soft, useless bird. Valen arrived like a tree that had decided today was a good day to fall on someone. He took the man down without breaking him. He tied his hands with a kitchen towel. Sale looked at the towel, looked at Valen, and said, "We will wash that twice." Then she went inside to get soup. It is hard to keep hate hot in a house where soup simmers and children laugh and the light comes through old cloth. The men in uniform and the archivists tried for a while. They set papers on the low table. They set words in rows. Then Sale put a bowl in front of each of them and a cup of tea and a piece of bread and said, "Eat while you talk or the ghosts will think we forgot them." And the room changed rules. They wrote a thing they called the resonance accord. It said, "Children are not weapons, not flags, not knives." It said, "Archives are for keeping, not cutting." It said, "If you say together, you will mean together, not mine." It said, "No one takes a child from a mother or a father except the child, who takes themselves by being who they are." Talia and Rick did not sign it. They were busy in the courtyard with Sale, who was telling the baby in Talia's belly a story about a goat that would not move for a king, and how the king learned to go around. Admiral Rice signed. Merrick signed. Valen signed it as witness and scowled at the ink as if it might bite him later. Havel did not sign. He stared at the paper and then at Rick. "Where do you think this ends?" Havel asked quietly when the others were in the courtyard tasting herbs to see which would go in the soup. "Somewhere better," Rick said. "Maybe not today, maybe not here, but somewhere." Havel nodded slowly. You used to be worse at speeches, he said. I liked you better then. Rick smiled. I like me better now. Havel snorted. There will be a price, he said. There always is. Earth Command will make you pay it later if they cannot make you pay it now. I know, Rick said. We'll pay, we'll choose the coins. Kel came to stand beside Havel. She put her hand on the colonel's arm where no one could see. He didn't move. She didn't move her hand. A thing like a small bridge was built. That night, under a sky that had 2 moons and the smell of basil, Rick lay on a mat beside Talia and listened to Sale in the next room argue with Merrick about the price of sparrows. He watched the shadow shapes the curtains made. He listened to Talia's breathing. He put one hand on his chest and felt his heart like a ship's coil, old and stubborn and doing its job. You were very brave, Talia said softly in the dark. I was very lucky, he said. Both, she said. I like both. He turned his head and in the faint light could see the pink strands still in her hair, grown out, a soft reminder that the first trick had been a gift. He reached out and touched it. We will make mistakes, he said. Yes, she said. We will apologize, we will do better, we will keep the soup warm. He laughed. The accord will not hold everything. It will hold enough for people to hold each other, she said. That is the only measure I know. A messenger came at dawn with an invitation made of silk and command. The accord had to be read aloud in the grand hall. There would be shouting. There would be singing. There would be people who wanted to throw rocks and people who wanted to build houses. Rick shaved with an iron blade and cut himself because humans are stupid sometimes. Talia patched the cut and kissed the patch and told him to stop bleeding on official paper. They went. They walked through a city ring that had always watched history from a safe distance, and today stood too close and learned it did not break you if you let it touch. Rick stood beside Talia in the hall. He looked up at the lattice ceiling. He thought of showers and drones and null holes and old friends who had become knives and new enemies who might become neighbors. He thought of a little hand that would one day grab a communicator and dunk it in juice. He thought of a voice that would say no to a general and yes to a grandmother and maybe to the first person they loved. Merrick spoke, Rice spoke. Dren spoke last. He was not a man for long words, he said. We almost broke a ship. We did not. We almost broke each other. We did not. We will almost break again. We will not. The hall did not cheer. It did the soft sound. It is a better sound. After, on the steps, a boy not much younger than Kess had been on the day the corridor tried to eat him, Cat walked up to Rick and shoved a hand out. Human, he said. My friend said you would be scary. You look tired. I am, Rick said. Being alive is hard. Not dying is harder, the boy said sagely. My mother says you can eat with us sometime. Your mother is wise, Talia said. The boy nodded. She is mean, he said lovingly and ran down the steps. Havel left without a handshake. Kel hugged Talia in a way that left a crack in Havel's line of clean retreat. Valen took a piece of bread from Sale's bag and pretended he didn't, and Sale pretended he did not pretend. Kale was on a transport to a cold place where men are taught slowly to become smaller, so there is more room for other people in the world. That evening, the Luminara lifted for a slow sail around the planet so civilians could look up and say that is ours. Rick stood with Talia in the observation lounge. She put his hand on her belly again. He waited. There, a flutter of fish in the ink. He laughed out loud. What? Talia said, smiling. Tell me. She just kicked me, he said, and then embarrassed himself by crying. He did not hide it. He had learned. He let it pour out of him like old water from a new spring. Talia put her forehead to his cheek. Her tears mixed with his. They made a new salt. You are sure it is she said. Yes, he said. How do you know? I don't, he said, and they both laughed. The stars leaned close like neighbors with elbows over the fence. The ship hummed. The world turned under them. The accord was a page that would wrinkle and tear and be mended and copied and argued over and finally become a story you tell children when they won't sleep without a dragon and a good ending. Rick looked down at the planet and up at the dark, and sideways at the woman whose trick had changed his life. He said almost to himself, if anyone asks how this happened, we will say we were foolish, we were brave, we liked to laugh, we are stubborn, we made soup. Talia's laughter was a bell. Write that on a wall, she said. I will, he said, and under it I will write, stripped by starlight we found our skin. He thought of Havel's warning. He thought of future knives. He thought of the price. He looked at his hands, scarred and clean. "I can pay," he said. "We can." Talia nodded. "We will never pay alone." Outside the glass, a meteor burned, wrote a line across the night, and went out. It did not make a sound you could hear. It made a story only if someone told it. There were people who would.